remember my first client, I made $100, like a 5-minute video, and it kind of felt like a cheat code. A lot of people want to think themselves to success, but a lot of the times it just takes action.
Just start posting. And then after you've posted every day for 90 days, you're going to find out what worked and what didn't work.
I think personal brand for now is the new wave of distribution.
Instead of saying 100 different words, you need to say 10. And what are the 10 words that are going to be the most effective, and how can you communicate that clearly?
If you do believe in something that you think is going to make the world better, then dude, get on the mountaintop and shout it as loud as you can.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Commercial Real Estate Blueprint Podcast. I'm extremely excited for today's guest, probably the most excited I've been since starting the podcast. It's kind of an out-of-box episode. It's not necessarily going to be all about commercial real estate today, but we have a lot of valid reasons for bringing Sam on, and we think you guys will gain a lot of value from this. So I'm welcoming Sam Gaudette. He's the creative director for Dan Martell. He basically was responsible for taking from Dan from 50,000 followers to over 1 million in a very short amount of time. He's a beast in just creating content strategy. He's the guy for social media and personal branding. So we're super excited to have you on. Thanks for coming.
I appreciate it, Graham. And lifting weights.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. You're a big weightlifter guy too. That's cool. And you guys are always traveling also. So before we start, I want to tell a quick story. We went to film a podcast with Brian Lubin, which we dropped that a couple weeks ago, and that was in Austin. Yeah. And while we were in Austin, we did that episode and stuff. We're hanging out the next day, just kind of waiting for our flight. We went to the Yeti store because they have like a flagship Yeti store. Mm-hmm. And I think a little bit before that, Jesse's like, oh man, Dan Martell's in Austin and he's picking up a Ferrari. We're like, oh, that's so cool. And then a couple hours later, we're sitting in the Yeti store and we see a like gray Ferrari fly by with a yellow stripe. And he's like, oh, that's a sweet Ferrari. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, that's probably Dan Martell. He's like, oh, I don't know. And then we saw his Instagram story and he had, it was yellow interior because he hadn't yet posted the picture of the outside. And I had yellow interior. And I was like, dude, if it's a gray Ferrari with a yellow stripe and he just, he took a video of him sitting with a yellow interior, that's like a 99% chance it's him. And so I took a picture of it, put on my story. And this is the biggest fail of my life. We were walking back from the Yeti store to our hotel and my Instagram call notifications, I didn't even know that was a thing, was not on, and he tried to call me like 3 or 4 times. I was like, oh my gosh, Dan Martell tried to call me. I tried to call him back like 4 times and never got through to him. And I was like so bummed.
Yeah. Black Ferrari, by the way.
Or black, sorry. Yeah, it was like matte black, gray, whatever. But I just thought that was crazy. So you guys were down there picking up the Ferrari and hanging out, right?
Yeah, we were there for a month. Yeah, obviously making content and collaborating with a few influencers in Austin. I love Austin. It's as a Canadian, man, like you go there and it's just America in a box, and I love it.
yeah, it is. Did you guys get any good barbecue while you were down there?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Terry Black's is the best, by the way. I've tried them all. Unless there's another one, let me know. But out of all the ones I've tried, Terry Black's is definitely taking the cake on that one.
Yeah, that's where we went. Where we went. So we also ate at some like Japanese fusion restaurant. It was really good. But
Brian took us to. It was really good.
Yeah. So for people who don't really know about you, I gave you an intro, but give us a little bit of your backstory.
Yeah, 100%. I started young in content. A lot of people see me today and they're like, oh, you're only 24. But they forget that I started when I was 14. So kind of non-traditional upbringing. My dad was very entrepreneurial, pushed me to do stuff that wasn't necessarily going to school, which is great. And fell down the path of videography, and that's what I liked. And then started helping business owners with making videos in 2017, which was kind of the start of the personal brand gold rush. And I remember, I think it was in 2019 when I started full time with Dan, young kid. I remember the interview. He looked at me and said, you're young. And I said, yeah, is that going to be a problem? And he was like, no, let's do it. And that was the start of that. And I started off as his videographer and then moved into a editor position and then into, content manager, creative director. And as the years went by, just learned a lot from the smartest people in the world and was blessed enough to find certain formulas and solutions that could get us millions and millions of views and eyeballs and actually monetize those eyeballs and make money on the back end. So it's been a long, people see it today and they only see the back end of the journey. But yeah, I've been working with Dan over almost 8 years now, and it's been a grind.
That's sick. Yeah, I think that just goes like, I've made a lot of videos. I've just had it's kind of like you said, I had a passion for just making videos. I don't know why. I was always making like snowboarding videos and stuff growing up and just here and there. Yeah. They were never any good, but I just loved doing it. And so you built yourself kind of a resume doing that from 14 on. I think that's awesome. Was it just purely passion that kept you in it and making you want to choose that as kind of like your, career path, quote unquote?
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely, at first, it was all passion. Like I just loved taking stuff and building stories and sharing it with the world. And then when I remember my first client, I made $100 for like a 5-minute video, and it kind of felt like a cheat code. I thought I figured out like how to make fire for the first time, and that was kind of the start of something. And I remember a second client, because at that time I had partnered with a guy that was a little bit older than me, because he had access to like these bigger clients, and we got this check for $2,200, and I looked at it and it didn't feel real, and that was the start of something that it was kind of an addiction for me, right? Like growth, being able to get results for people, and go down a non-traditional path that back then, like YouTube wasn't that big yet. Instagram Reels weren't a thing. TikTok wasn't even invented yet. And luckily was able to ride that wave when all those platforms came out and adapt fast.
So were you doing that just for other people, or at that point were you trying to do anything like making videos about yourself or anything like that?
Yeah, I played around. Back then I was super introverted. Like I always joke with Dan, like he built me into the person I am today. Like the person he interviewed that day and the person that I am today are two completely different people. I would have never stepped on a podcast or went in front of a camera back then. And then, through those years was able to build some stuff behind the scenes. That when Dan picked me up and I went full time, I learned a lot quickly about like how to make videos that actually perform, essentially.
That's sick. Yeah, you mentioned something on Cassidy Warren's podcast that I mentioned before we recorded that, we had him on our podcast, really cool guy. He's doing big things right now with his podcast. I love watching his stories and stuff. He's really, like he says,
I'm glad. Yeah, dude. I'm glad he's pushing it, because he was bugging me for advice at first, and I said, dude, just get the reps in. Like once you get the reps in, it's a lot easier. A lot of people want to think themselves to success, but a lot of the times it just takes action. And I'm really cool. It's really cool to see him. I think I saw one of his clips from his pod get like 50K views, and I was pumped.
Oh, that's awesome.
He's crushing it.
He talks about going pro, and I think he learned that from you guys, which I think that's really cool. But you mentioned something on there that you were talking about how you were introverted, you didn't really like being on the camera and stuff, but you just started filming yourself and saving the clips on your camera roll without even posting them. I was like, wow, that's genius. That's really smart.
I mean, I don't know if it's genius, but it was what got me the reps in, because back then, this was 4 years ago, I wanted to start making content. I wanted to start putting myself out there and sharing content and helping people. And I could not get myself to go in front of a camera and record a video. But then after every day for 2 years doing it, you just get used to it. And I wish I could one day I might post all those videos, like kind of a mashup. But it's cool to see the transformation from like day one, super nervous, talking really fast, to after that being able to actually put a sentence and ideas together. And I think that's what's going pro is all about, right? It's just making a decision to essentially make this the main thing. And it's cool to see that it worked for us, and it's going to work for Cassidy too.
Yeah, and that was your way of taking action too. I think that's the biggest thing that Rich Summers told us was just start posting. And then after you've posted every day for 90 days, you're going to find out what worked and what didn't work. You'll be able to go back and do the analytics. You guys talk a lot about analytics and stuff with that too, but taking action, like I remember thinking about, because I was watching Cassidy and Rich's podcast this morning, and I remember thinking to myself, man, this guy will not be denied. He's just going to keep posting. He's going to become relevant eventually. Like, not that he isn't relevant now, but I mean, he's just going to become like mainstream very soon.
100%. Yeah, it just takes the reps. And that's like, people see Dan's success today. Guy was posting YouTube videos before I even got on his team. So I think he started in 2014 when he sold Clarity, his third company. And that was the moment that he kind of started down that path. And to get to 100K subscribers took him 9 years. To get to 1 million took 9 months, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's what people forget is it effort compounds. Like at first it feels like a lot of effort for not a lot of results. Mm-hmm. And then once you get 10 years in and of reps, and then you start to see that success, like the algorithm is going to reward creators that are showing up every day. But that's the key too, is just not like, you can't just be consistent. You have to be consistently better. And that's kind of what was the decision to go pro about 2 years ago, when Dan called me up and he was like, hey dude, I want to go all in. This is what's going to need to be true. You're going to have to move here. We're going to build a studio. We're going to build a team. That's when our numbers went from sideways to up and to the right.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. It's so good to hear too, because I've probably been going at like posting stuff for maybe like 2 years, been very inconsistent, haven't had a massive amount of growth at all, haven't had much growth at all. But it's good to hear that somebody else was trying, and it took them a good while, and they finally just decided like, all right, I'm going to do it. And I feel like that's where I'm starting to get to, is like, I got to just like really, really go hard on this and not make it a side hustle, because it's way more than that. You're obviously extremely passionate about all this stuff. So I'm curious, like from your perspective, why do you think think that it matters for business owners and people who just want to be, entrepreneurs? Why does it matter for them to be making content?
Great question. I think it's the new wave. I think AI is going to be part of it, but I think personal brand for now is the new wave of distribution. Yeah, where, you had the atomic unit of the personal computer come in the 80s, and then after that, the internet, and after that, social media. And now we have a new atomic unit, which is the creator, right? And it's the person that can get maximum distribution and build trust in the audience without having to, pay to get in front of those people. Because it's the first time that we have an algorithm, at least in my history, that rewards good content, not good audience, right? And your subscribers, your followers, your newsletter subscribers, they're irrelevant. What matters is if you make a really good piece of content, it's going to get a ton of eyeballs. And I think that's what people under index, especially if they're business owners, is that you can either run ads on Facebook for $1 amount or spend money on building a media company and be able to get distribution 10 times, 100 times more than, you would pay for an ad placement. And I think that's the biggest thing that most business owners under index on, is the ability to get those eyeballs for a fraction of the price. And it just takes a little bit of effort up front, and then after that compounds.
So I'm pretty new in my content, like generation, all that stuff. For those that are just getting started and want to start posting content, what does good content even look like? Like, where does someone even start?
Great question. I mean, a couple places we could go here. I think the most helpful place could be, a lot of people, like, content starts with who you are. And I think a lot of people start on their content journey, not to say that you don't need the reps, but you do need to become a certain person in order to share yourself with the world. And I think that's what a lot of people under index. The first thing, one of my best friends, Ronnie, he creates some of the biggest personal brands in the world. And his first session with his clients is always attacking the micro behaviors of those people that might not show up on camera, but when they form, you can tell. So I don't know if that makes sense in your mind, but a lot of the things that most creators miss out on is the ability to communicate a message clearly with the audience without any of the baggage of being a human, right? And that comes with, like, the reps and being in front of the camera a lot. But if you're starting from zero, like, all you have to figure out is how to communicate clearly to another person, whether it's on the other side of a camera, in a team meeting, right? And that skill is going to be 10 times more useful in your lifetime than just creating content. And I think that's what people don't see in the people like Alex Hormozy, Dan Martell, Gary Vee, all these influencers that have blown up, gone 10x, 100x returns on their investment of investing in building a media company. It's not because they're just being consistent, right? It's not because they're just posting YouTube videos. It's not because they're just posting Instagram Reels. It's because their ability to take complex problems and distill them into super simple solutions that they can dissect and explain to a 5-year-old gets them that distribution, because then people are like, that guy knows what he's talking about. And I think that's, if I had to distill everything to one skill, it would be communication. And how you get closer to that is, one, the reps, but then also get help from the best in the world. Like, a lot of these people that you see online have people behind the scenes helping them with how they communicate. And it's not to say that they're not being themselves, but they're 100% working on being able to communicate a message in a more clear way that everybody on the other side understands it, not just business owner, entrepreneur. And that's why they get 10, 15, 20 million views.
It makes me think of the book, and I'm sure you probably read it or heard of it, but Building a Story Brand talks about marketing.
100%. Yeah, dude. Donald Miller. He's a legend in the space.
Yeah. It makes me think about, like, his branding message, talking about on the internet and all your marketing copy and stuff. Basically, it's almost like, at least what I've experienced, is if you're filming a reel or something, a short form, like, that is basically the same. Like, instead of saying 100 different words, you need to say 10. And what are the 10 words that are going to be the most effective, and how can you communicate that clearly? And then can you also target somebody who you're trying to specifically talk to? It's kind of like what I hear you saying.
100%. Yeah, word efficiency. It's the meta skills that people don't talk about. They're like, oh yeah, post 2 reels a day, use this caption, hashtag, thumbnail, title. But at the end of the day, it's communication, right? We're trying to communicate an idea to another human being with emotion or motion. And I think that's what's going to set creators apart from AI. I'm not saying that in 2 years you can't create an avatar that has all those skills, because I'm working with some people that have some pretty cool projects that they're working on AI avatars that, have emotions and facial recognition and all that fun stuff. But at the end of the day, like, as long as people can consume content online, I think creators are going to create content online, and all those nuances of communication that some might have naturally, right? I think Alex and Gary have, and Dan have natural abilities to communicate, where other people that don't necessarily have that have to work on those skills.
But you think it's something people can learn, though, right?
100%. Every skill, whether it's soft or hard, like video editing, or being able to win friends and influence people, love that book, is a skill that you can learn.
Yeah, no, that's great. Talking about all this stuff, the wording and the communication being the most important part, is something I'm wondering, because I've heard people do both ways. Are you scripting videos word for word? I assume you're probably scripting hooks and stuff, but like how much of it is scripting versus like just off the rip?
Yeah, great question. I think for every creator, they work differently. There's some creators that I've talked to that 100% scripted works the best for them because they don't want to think, they just want to read. And they're actually really good, like quote unquote actors. Like they can actually, because the problem with the script is it's going to sound canned if you're not being emotive, right? When you're reading it. People like Dan, guy has a genius brain. I can give him a word and he'll just riff on it for 15 minutes, right? So for us personally in our company, we sometimes we script hooks, sometimes I just give him outlines. And then for the actual body of the piece of content, I just give him an outline with like words that I want him to hit on. And think about like putting guide rails up when you're going bowling, you know, those rails that they move up and then you throw the ball and it just hits the rails. Like I'm just trying to guide him in the right direction so that he can get a strike. And yeah, like not a lot of, I'd say Gary's like that too. A lot of these influencers that are able to churn out that volume are like that because it is a lot easier too, because you don't have to write 120 scripts a year. You can just write outlines, and the talent is the fact that they can, you know, riff on those words.
Mm-hmm. But the script, the hook though, most of the time, right? That's probably mostly scripted. I've heard most people do that.
Yeah, just the hook.
That's what I figured. Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah. I would love to get to that point. That's cool. Another kind of side note question: do you think that people? Well, I guess so. I've gone through the phase where I tried to post a bunch of stuff that was really good quality, and then I tried to go through the phase where I just posted every single day or 2 times a day, and then it resulted in having bad quality. And you see people online who are like for example, Brian Lubin. I mean, he's like, the best videos, the most viral videos I have are me sitting in my car talking to my camera, selfie mode. And then you got somebody like Dan Martell, who's like, most of his stuff's very highly polished, really nicely edited. It's genuine, but it's like, you know, very professional looking. I guess a lot of it has to do probably with like the brand image that you want to show people. But what are your opinion on like those different styles? And like, do you think one of them's better, or I don't know, like how would you navigate that?
Yeah, I think you got it right on the nose. It's working backwards from what you want to portray in the market, right? And for Dan, like he's a person that obviously is never going to hold up a camera and record himself, right? Even if it's his phone, unless he's doing Instagram stories, right? He wants everything to be produced around him. And we're working backwards from him, right? Who he is as a person. And that is someone that is a walking, talking piece of content, right? We can just put a camera up and we know we're going to get but he's not going to produce it, if that makes sense, because he's working on other stuff, right? Building his ventures company, building AI companies, obviously investing in a lot of software companies. Most of his day outside of the 2 hours that we shoot every week is focused on that. And then the content's kind of a side quest for him. And that's been like, that's kind of our system, but other content creators can easily, pick up a phone and make a piece of content. But yeah, that does take time, which, you know, some people don't have if they're a business owner. And that's why I recommend hiring somebody that you can collaborate with, right? Me and Dan are collaborators, and all I'm trying to do is look at his life, look at all the things that he does, and figure out where can we create content. And it started like that from day one, which is slow at first because you won't get results because you're not as connected to the content. But after a while, when you get the reps in, then it's easy and you can go through your life. Dan doesn't have to worry about anything. He knows the content's going to get produced whether he shows up or not. And I only need those 2 hours every week of him, you know, sitting in the studio and recording those YouTube videos.
That makes sense. That makes a whole lot of sense. So do you think like, you know, I guess between the two styles, if someone's just starting and they probably don't have one of the questions Jesse, I know was going to ask, if you want to ask it about kind of, you know, the low budget versus no money thing.
Yeah. So something I was thinking about is like, there's a lot of people out there that, and, you know, selfishly too, we want to ask this, you know, if you had to start for a personal brand from starting scratch from today with a zero budget, so not that like you don't have any budget, like you don't have any budget really, how would you start and what would your first 30 days look like?
100%. I would try to monetize it as fast as possible. I think a lot of people try to spend money on something that's going to pay off in the future. And I know it's like the best thing to do you can do is invest in personal brand today. I still think it's a gold rush, but at the end of the day, if you're not making money from it, what's it for, right? Yeah, it's impact. Yeah, it's helping people. Yeah, it's getting those eyeballs, building that brand. But I think you could do both at the same time. So what that looks like is from those people that follow you, if you're getting results, I'm assuming you're getting a few followers coming in. How can you monetize those followers? And that's what we tried to do from day one, right? And Dan's lucky enough to have had this proof of, exiting 3 software companies, building one of the largest SaaS coaching businesses in the world, investing in over 100 startups, unicorn companies like Udemy, Unbounce, Hootsuite, and GetAround. And from that, he was able to have, this built up demand of people that wanted his time. So, we were able to build, a coaching company on the back end, Elite Coaching, where we can talk to our followers and say, hey, if you want help with growing your business, just reach out. And we've gotten insane volume of people, coming in, enjoying that program and getting really great results. And then we're able to monetize the personal brand. And if we weren't able to do that, I wouldn't be able to hire all the people that we hire, right? And you will be going a period of, we're going to spend X amount per month and we might not make money. But it's a big bet that we were willing to make at first. And Dan obviously was sitting on, he was already rich by the time, we decided to do this. And he's like, you know what, unlimited budget, make it happen. I don't care if it makes money or not. But, when I talk to business owners that are starting off, I believe you can do both at the same time.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah.
I got a little bit of a selfish question. So like me and Jesse, we started a podcast a year ago. We focus on commercial real estate. We wanted to start the podcast to document our commercial real estate portfolio building journey. Since starting the podcast, we've been able to buy 2 buildings with just us 2 and then 4 with the company we work with. So we're gaining traction. We've done a couple deals. We've got another one under contract now. If we were like your clients, what would you say for us to do to monetize a personal brand if we could get it off the ground and running?
Yeah. I mean, the longer play, like I always look at how can I get closer to going from a dollar, like a follower to $1, and buying commercial real estate, or, even what the Hormozis are doing with acquisition.com, or what Dan's doing with ventures, partnering with people that have these companies that don't necessarily, cash flow, or maybe they cash flow, but then you reinvest in the company so you don't have any money left to actually, take dividends on. They're focused on growth, right? The long-term greedy. And I think that's cool too. But if you just want to feed the engine, I would figure out, what can you help people overcome their fear or get results faster that you've gotten in the past, and sell some kind of coaching course, consulting. And I think, we live in an economy where we're blessed to be able to hop on a call with somebody who's done the thing for 25, 30 years, whether it's, real estate, personal brand, etc., and pay them for an hour or whatever it is, and be able to get that knowledge, right? So I would recommend doing that, where, whatever you've done, if it's buying those buildings and teaching people how to do it, or starting a podcast from scratch and having, over 100 episodes, I'd figure out what's your unique value proposition to the market, and be able monetize those followers, because they're going to be following you for a reason, and most likely it's to learn from you. And most people, your marketing will help more people than your product ever will, but that doesn't mean that they can't go deeper, right? And if they want a deeper connection with you, and buy the implementation, right? Because you give all the content for free, but the personalization, just like Caleb Ralston likes to say, is something that you can buy for yourself. And if you can find an offer that works for a ton of people, then you're able to self-fund that engine.
Do you think there's like a level of audience you have to do that?
No, I got a friend, Mike Brown. I think he had 3,000 followers, made over $1 million on Instagram in a year, and he helps. His offer, I think, was he helps rich people keep and make more money. So that's his offer is a lot more sexier than what I just said. But he had around 3,000 followers and was making $1 million a year. And I think, obviously you need a certain amount of people that come in and a certain reputation, but I think you can start making $1 on Instagram today if you decided.
That's great. And I assume too, he was probably getting, a couple things. One, I was going to say, you mentioned the Hormozis a lot. I've read, his books, and that's what I was thinking. I was thinking in my mind, just need to go to offer to people. Like you said, a value proposition, and then how you frame it is your offer.
Yeah.
But the guy you mentioned, I assume maybe he has 3,000 followers, but I assume he probably has a decent amount of views, or at least was getting a decent amount of views with his content to bring people in.
Not a ton. And that doesn't discount the fact that he was in the space for a while, right? Where he had all those followers that were high profile individuals. But I think a lot of people would be surprised of, the people in their connections and their Rolodex that they could help, and they're not, just because they haven't asked yet.
Yeah. I think I get like probably 2 to 3 people a week message me on Instagram asking about commercial real estate. So like it's definitely something I've been thinking about, considering, but it's obviously a big undertaking, and it's like almost like another business too. So, but that's kind of beside the point. You mentioned Hootsuite which is like a scheduler, right? And,
Yeah.
isn't it? So one thing I've seen a lot of content people debate is some people say if you use a scheduler, it kills views. Some people say if you just post direct to the platform, it does a lot better. Do you guys use something like that?
Yeah, so we just use the native scheduling tools. Meta Business Suite is actually really good, and you can schedule everything you need. And then on YouTube specifically and TikTok, you can schedule everything you need. So yeah, I think those third-party tools were good in the past. Now we just use the native tools, and it's great.
Gotcha. And this is getting very granular, but I'm just curious.
I love it. Let's get detailed.
Yeah, like the trending audio. Can you do trending audio in Business Suite and on the other platforms, or do you recommend not doing that? Because that's another debate. I see people say use it, don't use it, use your own audio, all that stuff.
Yeah, we personally use trending audios, but we just put them natively inside of our edits because I think the fact that you use a song, I don't think the fact that you connect the song to all the other videos that use the song is the thing that gets it to go viral. It's the fact that that song is either connecting with a human being, they've heard it before, creates that nostalgia effect. So yeah, we try to use trending audios, but not necessarily. We just embed them in our videos. We don't focus on putting them in that list. So yeah, I have my editors add them into the edits, and they bake them in, and then that gives us that extra 20-30% on the top end of people that watch the video just to listen to the rest of the song.
I saw a guy post a video, actually Graham sent it to me, said that 75% of people listen to reels or watch reels without any volume on. Do you think that's probably pretty close? And if so, how are you adjusting your reels to make sure you adhere to that kind of audience?
So on the volume side, like how many times do we post?
No, volume as in like people are watching reels like Instagram and Facebook, but they don't have their volume on their phone. So they're not actually hearing that trending audio.
Yeah, totally.
They're actually just watching it.
Yeah, no, totally. And that's why every single one of our videos is captioned. So we make sure that, if you watch one of Dan's videos, you can tell what's going on without even having the audio on. And I think that's something that a lot of people forget is that 20-30% of people just watch reels without the sound on, right?
That's crazy.
That is crazy. You mentioned earlier building a social media company. For somebody like me and Graham, what does that even look like?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the future. I think every single company in the future will have a media department and even a media company within it. Yeah, it's the ultimate distribution tool. And I think in the future, we're going to move into a world where these influencers that are, making tons and tons of money from capturing eyeballs are going to be partnering with bigger companies where, traditional means of marketing, not that it's going to go away, but just like Facebook ads did in 2013 and after, it's definitely going to take a big market share and have big impact. And I think a lot of people you're already seeing it. People are leaning into it. And this has been the case for years with athletes, right? Big companies partnering with athletes. I think the influencer age is just getting started. And it's going to be the future of how people build businesses.
Yeah. So to piggyback on that, I guess a business owner or somebody starting out and they want to start a new business, they want to get a commercial real estate, whatever it may be, you probably would suggest they make a media company. And when they do that, are you referring to I know for Dan, it's just for him, right? And his content but then some of these other people you're talking about, going out and finding people like Dan and making media for him. Do you think they should do both? Or are you talking about just really doing the media company for themselves and their own personal brand?
Think about your personal brand as the number one client and build a company around it. Because I think that's what a lot of people have a marketing department. The problem with the marketing department is it doesn't if it doesn't perform, there's no incentive to, right? The difference with a media company is you separate the two, and we're showing up every day to serve Dan. We are his media company. Martell Media is an entity in his portfolio that our number one job is to get eyeballs on him. And we have metrics that we're accountable to. And every week we report on the eyeballs every day. And every quarter we have, rocks, and just like any other company running EOS. And we're a media company essentially that runs 100% off the back end of getting eyeballs for Dan.
That's awesome. So going back to the question about kind of somebody starting out and doesn't really have the budget for it, right? I'm sure there's a spectrum of people. There's some people who start, they probably have no money to do anything with because they're starting a new business. Then there's some people like us, they maybe have a little bit of money to spend on it and invest in it, but not tons and tons of somebody like Dan Martell. So what would be the first couple, what would be the blueprint for starting a media company for yourself? What would be the first couple hires? How can somebody do that? Keep it relatively lean, but also be, I guess, the best bang for your buck.
100%. Yeah, and I'll share this. I think staying in your lane is a great mental framework for people that want to build a personal brand but don't necessarily understand what it takes. And that doesn't mean don't pay attention to what's working or not. Dan is probably the number one consumer of TikTok entrepreneurship content, and I love it because he sends me time, right? But that means, delegating from day one. And Dan obviously partnered with me, and he wanted me to kind of run the but he needed to kind of separate the business from the media, because he's an operator, right? He's an entrepreneur, he's a CEO, he's gonna go build those AI software companies, and he has to trust that the other person on the other side is going to do his job at getting eyeballs. So if you're starting off and you want to build what I call top down, I think you should go find somebody to work through that can figure out the blueprint. Like, I don't think anybody on this podcast, if they're commercial real estate investors, should be thinking about how do I hire a video editor, right? I think they should be thinking about how do I hire a creative director to partner with, and they can go hire the video editors and the graphic designers, and they can worry about all that because it is a whole, like, even from personal experience, like learning all that over again would take me a long, long time. I'd rather go hire the people that already have the playbooks. And for the people that, can't necessarily hire a creative director or somebody that would be that equivalent, media manager, I would just recommend starting to get the reps in, right? And when you can afford to put that money aside and invest in growing your personal brand, I would delegate that off your plate as soon as possible. But yeah, get those videos out. Like, there's a bunch of people that are great examples of that are making Instagram videos, YouTube videos with minimal or if not zero equipment, just their phone, and they're getting millions and millions of views. I'm not saying that's not possible. But yeah, if you're a business owner, it's going to be a little bit harder because you're going to have to spend time and money on investing in the skills to make that happen.
100%. We struggle with that because we're in commercial real estate, so it's 100% commission based, and the time frame on the commission is 60 to 90 days for once it goes under contract. Prior to that, it takes a lot of work to get a deal under contract. So I'm always struggling with, all right, I need to spend time calling, cold calling, finding deals, putting them under contract. And then I'm like, well, I also need to make content, but the content's not really paying me anything right now, but it's for the long term. So it's like towing that line and balancing it, because I'm trying to do like mostly everything myself. And me and Jesse, we hired a guy who posts it for us on YouTube, and then we hired a guy who edits videos. But what you talked about describes perfectly the book that I'm reading that I'm sure you've heard of, everybody's heard of. It's called Who Not How.
Yep.
And it's basically talking about not how do I do all this stuff. It's like, no, who do I hire who already knows how to do it? Who does it for me? And that's honestly,
exactly.
I read the book and didn't even think about that. That was such a good point. Don't hire a video editor, but hire a creative director who can do that for you. And don't worry, we're not going to fire a video editor because they're going to edit this. We can have a creative director use our video editor.
100%.
And like,
they know what a good video editor looks like. So either everybody on your team steps up or they step out. And I think that's a big difference between, because yes, it costs a little bit more money, but in the long run, it's saving you money because it's saving you those mistakes that you're making because you're accepting, B level players or C level players where you could have A players on your team, but you don't even know what that looks like yet.
That's awesome. And the other thing too, I was talking to you a little bit about this when I first messaged you about coming on the podcast, is like Buy Back Your Time talks about the first hire for sure is an executive assistant who handles your big tasks and stuff like that.
100%.
Do you think somebody should hire that first before they go out and do
Yeah. When I say build a media company, like, I'm assuming you already have a business and something built out, like your EA. Because that was my first kind of, obviously I had my video editors, but as soon as I got an executive assistant that would take care of all my calendar and email stuff, like, my execution and speed of getting this media company off the ground just tenfold.
That's so good. We need to do that. Yeah. We've been definitely solo entrepreneur
if you want
guys.
The playbook, like, there's a full, I don't know if you guys messaged Dan already, but go just message him EA on Instagram, and he'll send you the full playbook. Like, it's literally just like 40 some pages of what you want your assistant to do. Obviously get the book, and chapter 6 has all the information, but yeah, just message Dan EA on Instagram and he'll send you the playbook. It's free. It's pretty good. Like, that's what I use with my EA assistant, and crushes it.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think I have that downloaded from when I read the book probably 3 or 4 months ago.
Yeah, I got it too. So I think some of the biggest things that commercial real estate investors can take from content, and why we would even create content, is to build trust. I think Dan does a really good job of building trust. I've never met him, but I trust that he's going to give me really great advice. How would you suggest, and how do you think that you guys do a good job of creating and kind of manufacturing that trust online?
Yeah, I think Dan talks about the reach and reputation. I think if you have a reputation, you probably shouldn't get reach. I think that's one. Like, Dan was a good person before he became an online guy, right? Like, one of those guys. There's a lot of people that don't do that, right? They obviously don't have a good reputation starting off, or maybe they mess it up on the way up. But I think that's something that a lot of people overlook when they see all these people online. Yeah, brand is a is a funny thing where it is associations. And if you're associated with bad things, then you're not necessarily building a good brand. So that starts from day one. Like, what are we about? And, you're not going to, this is the thing, you're not going to appease everyone, right? Dan takes a hard stance on a lot of topics. And I'm not saying that you have to die on every hill that you climb up, but you definitely have to stand for stuff if you're going to build a personal brand. And that means, sometimes alienating some people that, don't believe that being fit is something that you should do before you start a business. And that's something that Dan really truly believes in, and he thinks is a positive message that he should put out on the marketplace. And if he loses 10% of our audience because of that, and the other 90 actually get fitter, better, healthier, faster, and more happy, then he's a happy guy, right? And I think that's what you kind of have to do when you're building a brand, is figuring out like, okay, I'm not going to be liked by everyone, but to build real trust, you have to stand for something, right? And I think, I'm not saying go, hardcore in any direction.
Yeah.
Have a few things that maybe aren't political that you believe in, that you think, would rid the world of suffering, and believe in them and share it and share your personal experience. And people will appreciate it and get results.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. A buddy of mine asked me, because we were just talking about personal brand and stuff. He's trying to build his own one as well. And he asked me what I stood against in commercial real estate.
Yeah.
I didn't have an answer for him. I had no idea. I was like, I got to step back and think about that. And that's exactly what you're saying. You got to kind of stand for something. And then that kind of creates that, like, oh, he's against that too. Like, I'm very against that in my field too. And that creates...
I'll give you the real cheat code. Like, we call this the common enemy at Martell Media. Like, that's what we call it. And every piece of content, we try to have a common enemy. Whether it's, you guys have seen the video, never charge for your time, always charge for an outcome. The common enemy there is, charging for your time. They always quit. Nobody quits nobody quits a company. They always quit their boss. The common enemy there is like bad leadership or the bad boss. And what that does is you're standing for something and you're building a common enemy. And that gets the people going, right? Either rallying for you or against you. And if you do believe in something that you think is going to make the world better, then dude, get on the mountaintop and shout it as loud as you can.
Yeah. That's such a good point. Another topic I wanted to touch on that I hear people debating is like being super niche versus being like more broad, and like just making content about whatever you might be interested in, because then you're going to get a bigger reach and you might have a higher chance of going viral.
Yep.
Do you guys balance the two, or do you go after one or the other, or what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, very nuanced. Like, answering question is very gray. I don't think it's black and white. A lot of people think that brand is, a logo on a wall, or, a fucking a tagline, right? A brand is more like a painting, right? And there's different aspects of that painting. And I think a lot of people overlook, especially when building a personal brand, all the things that make it personal, right? And it's in the word personal brand. And my favorite analogy comes from Caleb Ralston. He used to work for Gary, used to work for Alex. And he says, if you were showing up to a party and every party, this guy comes up to you and he's talking about the same fucking thing every day, how long would you sit there before you get annoyed? And I think that's what a lot of people overlook when they, obviously, like, I'm not saying don't pick a niche and don't stand for something. But what I'm saying is have those human aspects of you that you share with your audience, that aren't necessarily probably based on commercial real estate or whatever your niche is, but would appeal to broader human beings and is something that you believe in. So a great example of that is, our customer, right, is somebody that is in his 40s and he has a business and he wants to grow it, and he's probably at like $1 million a year, has a couple kids. And when we make a piece of content about Dan, how he raises his kids, or how he prioritizes his wife over his kids, and how he runs that relationship, it's not necessarily going to resonate with like every business owner out there. But for the ones that are like Dan, that have kids, have a relationship, want to build a business, but don't want to sacrifice their family life, that actually is a net positive, right? So I think people overlook what about your niche is maybe some parts that are a little bit more human, that you could double down on. And you don't have to talk about the same thing all the time. It's more like a painting, and you could have different aspects of that painting show up in different parts of your world.
Yeah, that's such a good way to put it. I think pretty insightful too. So I appreciate that. So switching gears, because we don't, I know you're a super busy guy. We don't want to take too much of your time. Getting like more tactical, right? I want to have some tactical questions. So one 100%. Thing I want to talk about is gear, and then one thing I want to talk about is like AI tools, because obviously AI is here to stay. So we'll start with AI. What kind of tools are you guys using, and can you recommend to people to help them in their content workflow?
Yeah, I'll give you the answer that sucks first, and then I'll give you the answer that's good after.
Okay.
The answer that sucks is most of our tools that we use are custom tools, because Dan has a AI venture studio. We build a lot of these in-house. We have engineers in-house that build tools to increase efficiency on the team. The good news is you can get a lot of tools like them that I'll share. I mean, there's 11 labs with voice generation that you can use to fill gaps. We've used it in the past. There's Runway for B-roll generation. There's even Photoshop AI. Is a great fucking tool if a lot of designers on our team use it. Except for that, I'd say maybe, let's say, Notebook LM or even some sort of GPT that has a little bit more robustness to it, where you could load, hours and hours of you talking into what we call the company brain, and then your team being able to search that. Another one, what is it? I think it's chatbot or chat. I can't think of the word, but there's a Slack tool that you search. If you search like Slack response tool, it's really good for our internal team, where we call it body, that goes into every thread. And if somebody asks a question, they try to pull the information from Notion or from Slack to respond to their question before, Sally jumps in to respond to that question, and that saves our team a lot of time.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I heard of that. That's really cool.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, that's actually probably the most impressive use of AI that I've seen in that every company can implement, right? Because everybody has that guy that always likes to have the answers in Slack. Now, like, we always joke that we wanted to add a tag, because we have one guy that always responds to every Slack message. We want to have a tag like, at name, got here before you, or like shut up or something like that.
That's hilarious.
That'd be funny. Yeah.
That's funny. Awesome. Well, yeah, those are definitely tools I'll check out. I heard 11 Labs, but some of the other ones I hadn't heard of. And then in terms of gear, I since I've make videos and stuff, I love gear and camera gear and looking at stuff and, buying the next thing or whatever. But what do you recommend people get as like I guess one for podcasting and then one for personal brand, like running guns type stuff? Because we do a lot of that too. What is like 100%. An ideal setup you'd recommend?
Yeah, and I'm not sponsored by Sony or anything, but I love the Sony ecosystem. I think it's the easiest to use. Everything works together. So we're on Sony for most of our gear. We use the FX3 series. We have a couple FX6s. I don't think that matters. You can get an FX30. And for audio, we use any Rode or DJI, mics you can get anywhere. And for the sit down videos, we just use these, which are, SMB7s. They're pretty standard in the podcasting space. Yeah, I think gear's cool. I think what's cooler is actually getting, a really cool set and really good lighting. I think that's what we pride ourselves on, because, a lot of Dan's stuff looks, very premium, and, my lighting team's really good. Yeah, you don't need any specific lights. Just make sure you have a really big softbox and you're controlling the external lights. And yeah, you can get a really, really good set out of, very limited space and very limited lighting and very limited gear. And I think that's what actually matters when you look at all these creators that are making, really high quality videos. A lot of times it's the lighting, and what that looks like is, blacking out, just like here, blacking out the room, making sure that you don't have any other lights interfering with your set, and then making sure that your keys and your fills are dialed.
Yeah, no, your lighting looks sick. I thought that when you popped on, I was like, that's really cool setup.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Thank you, man. I got to walk the walk, man. I feel weird when I show up and I don't have good production.
No, that's all super good. I had a Sony A7C, and then I sold it and got a Fujifilm because I saw like the cool Fujifilm stuff, and now I like the Fujifilm photos that you can make. It's really cool, but I hate that like the autofocus and stuff on the Sonys is like I didn't realize how spoiled I was having it until I went away from it. I was like, oh wow, I see why people always talk about it and stuff, because I always just thought like, oh yeah, all of them are like that, but no, that's not true. Sony's autofocus is crazy.
Yeah, and everybody I hire used to work. I don't know if you guys know cameras, but they used to work with like REs and Reds and all these fancy Blackmagic cameras. And once you use a Sony, you kind of get spoiled, because like the autofocus, the ease to use. Like we're not trying to make a movie here, and the truth is if you miss the shot, if you get a decent shot of something that you would have missed in the past, that's a win for us. And we're just trying to use the gear that's going to get us the shots that we need. And for us, that has been historically, the Sony FX series.
That's cool. You make me want to go buy another camera, but I shouldn't. Cool.
I mean, dude, the best camera you have is the one in your pocket, right? We shoot a lot of stuff on iPhone. Yeah. Actually, our most recent million view video was shot on iPhone, because, we were out in public and Dan was showing his car to a kid, and I only had my phone in my pocket, and that's what I shot with, and it performed 10-20 times better than all our other videos that week that were all shot on expensive gear. So yeah, I think that's what a lot of people forget is, you have access to a camera at all times. Just make sure you use it.
That's awesome. That's cool. One of the very last questions I'll ask, and then Jesse, think of the last one if you have anything. Because I was chatting with Chat GPT thinking about this, and I was like, if I put out 30 videos in a month, right? Let's say, or more. Actually, that's a side question if you guys do multiple every day or just one. But basically, I was thinking like, is it good to have like a couple where you're sitting like in a studio talking, and then maybe a couple where you're out in the field, and then maybe a couple where you're sitting in your car? Do you think it really matters?
I'll give you the principle behind this. Like, I think feed fatigue is a real thing. Like, you don't want to be standing in the same spot all the time. You'll see that, most of our shots are varied from day to day. So yeah, in a 10 out of 10 world, to get the best results, I would try to vary your sets. But at the end of the day, I've seen people, have the same set every day and still get results. So it's kind of like optimizing for I would focus on your videos, like what you're talking about first, the topics, because I think that's the biggest lever you could pull. And then after that would be, editing and pacing and hooks and all that fun stuff. And then the last thing would be like set design and location and the visual hooks, right?
That's helpful. And then do you guys do like one a day, or do you do 2 a day, or do you more than two?
We currently do 2 a day. I think Instagram rewards 2 a day best. We do 3 a day on TikTok. We just play with the algorithm. Sometimes we'll ramp up to 3 a day just to see what it looks like. And for some weeks we get better results, and then kind of ramps down. Then we go back down to 2 a day. I think quality matters more than volume.
Yeah. I had my guy post on YouTube my shorts. We'll go from 1 to 2 a day, and all of a sudden they started getting much more views, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe 2 a day is good on YouTube.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. Nothing crazy, but just a lot better than what it was doing. So
100%.
Cool.
My last question would be, so we've experimented with running Instagram ads for decent quality videos. I've done it and gotten pretty good feedback on local stuff. When you're trying to go national, it's like we're taking one of these podcast clips, trying to post it national, trying to grow the podcast, trying to grow a personal brand. Do you think Instagram ads is helpful short term or long term, or do you even suggest us using that?
Yeah, boosting.
What's that?
Yeah,
boosting.
Like boosting. Yeah. Yeah, I would try to figure out how can you make content that gets reach despite needing to boost it or not. I think if you make really good content, it'll get reach. If you want to get into ads or boosting, like that's a whole different strategy that I don't really understand personally. Like I have friends that are the best in the world. Yeah. I'm just focused on creating content that gets organic reach and people discussing in the comments and people sharing it, saving it. And yeah, I think that's the more sustainable way to build a brand.
Yeah. I agree, because it can get expensive really quickly.
100%. And I see people that do this, like there's a ton of influencers out there with, get million view videos and they have 2 comments and people see through it, right? Like for what reason are you doing it? If you're trying to build goodwill and help people, like blasting a piece of content in front of people that have never seen your face isn't really a good use of money, right?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's good.
Well, this has been super, super informative. And I think hopefully the people listening got value. And hopefully got inspired to actually go out and start a personal brand around whatever they're doing, or better yet, go out and find a creative director who they can partner with and help them grow their business. Hopefully that we can find somebody like you, man, around us who could blow us up. That'd be sick. It's like the most valuable asset is your skill set. So you should be really proud for everything you've done.
For
Thank
sure,
you, brother. Appreciate it. Obviously you guys are professionals. Enjoy the pod. You guys are a blast to hang out with, and looking forward to talking more.
Awesome. Yeah, and if people want to connect with you, what's the best way to do it?
Yeah, just Instagram is my favorite. Send me a message, sam.gadet. Just send me a message. I love chatting with people over there.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a true story. He replied and gave me some great advice and then agreed to come on here. So go send him a message, and hope you guys enjoyed this one. And thank you so much for listening.
Yeah.